The distant echo of gunshots rattled through the dusty air of Hawthorne, Colorado, as dusk settled over the frontier town in the autumn of 1875. But Noah Lambert heard none of it from his solitary perch on a wooden stool in the corner of Miller's stable, the only sanctuary where his troubled thoughts couldn't find him, or so he believed until the door creaked open, spilling golden light across the hay-strewn floor. Noah didn't bother looking up. His calloused hands worked methodically, polishing his saddle with the same care he'd once given to his dreams. The leather was cracked from years on the trail, much like the man himself. At 32, Noah had seen enough of life to know its promises often turn to dust in your hands, just like everything else in this God-forsaken territory. The soft footfalls approaching didn't register until the scent of lavender cut through the stable's earthy aroma. A woman moved quietly to the stall beside him, where his palomino stood watching with intelligent eyes. Noah glanced up, his hand instinctively moving to the revolver at his hip, old habits from too many years on the wrong side of the law. She didn't notice his movement, too focused on retrieving an apple from her basket. Her profile, caught in the lantern light, revealed a face neither young nor old, but weathered just enough to suggest she knew something of hardship. Her dark hair was pinned neatly beneath a simple bonnet, and her blue dress, though plain, was clean and well kept. "Most folks announce themselves before entering a man's stable," Noah said, his voice rough from disuse. The woman startled, nearly dropping the apple. "Oh, I didn't realize," she recovered quickly, straightening her shoulders. "I'm sorry to disturb you, sir, but Mr. Miller asked me to check on the horses while he's away. I didn't think anyone would be here." Noah studied her face, unfamiliar in a town where he knew every resident, whether they wanted him to or not. "You're new to Hawthorne." "Yes." She offered the apple to his palomino, who accepted it with gentle lips. "I arrived last week. Willa Keller. I'm staying with my aunt, Mrs. Abernathy." Noah nodded slightly. Old widow Abernathy lived on the edge of town. "Noah Lambert," he replied, returning to his saddle. Willa moved to the next stall, speaking softly to the chestnut mare inside. Her methodical care for each animal suggested experience. Not a city woman, then. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't entirely uncomfortable. "You have a beautiful horse," she said eventually, nodding toward the palomino. "Sundance has been with me through worse than most men could survive," Noah replied. "He's earned his retirement." "Retirement?" Willa asked, pausing at the adjacent stall. "We both have." Noah didn't elaborate. His reputation had likely preceded him even to this newcomer's ears. Noah Lambert, once the fastest gun between Denver and Santa Fe, now nothing but a cautionary tale of what happened when a man's conscience caught up with him. "Well, Mr. Lambert," she said, finishing with the last horse, "I'll leave you to your solitude." As she turned to go, Noah surprised himself. "Miss Keller." She paused at the stable door, framed by the twilight beyond. "The nights get cold this time of year. The horses appreciate a fresh blanket before morning." A small smile curved her lips. "I'll remember that. Good evening, Mr. Lambert." After she left, Noah sat motionless, the saddle forgotten in his lap. Something about her calm presence had disturbed the carefully cultivated emptiness he'd maintained these past years. He didn't like it. Attachment was dangerous. He'd learned that lesson at the end of a rope that had nearly taken his life after the Jasper gang betrayed him. But the next evening found Noah back in the same spot, telling himself he was just checking on Sundance. When Willa appeared with her basket of apples and carrots, he acknowledged her with a nod but said nothing. This routine continued for 4 days, him polishing tack or mending leather, her tending to the horses, few words passing between them. On the 5th day, she spoke first. "Do you always spend your evenings in a stable, Mr. Lambert?" Noah's hands stilled on the bridle he was repairing. "Horses make better company than most people." "And why is that?" "They don't judge a man for what he's done, only for how he treats them now." Willa considered this as she spread fresh hay. That sounds like the voice of experience. Noah didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "What brings a woman alone to Hawthorne? Not much here, but dust and trouble." "Perhaps I like trouble," she replied with unexpected humor. "Or perhaps I had nowhere else to go." Their eyes met briefly across the lantern-lit stable, and Noah recognized the shadows there, the same ones that haunted his own reflection. "Your aunt says you're from Denver," Noah ventured, surprising himself with the admission that he'd been asking about her. Willa's expression closed slightly. "Yes, until recently. Denver's a sight more civilized than Hawthorne. Civilization has its own kind of savagery, Mr. Lambert. Her tone ended the conversation as firmly as a slammed door. They worked in silence until she finished her tasks. As she gathered her things to leave, Noah stood. Miss Keller, would you allow me to walk you home? These streets aren't safe after dark. The request surprised them both. For a moment she looked as though she might refuse. Then she nodded. Thank you. That would be kind. The night air carried the scent of pine from the distant mountains. Their boots crunched on the hard, packed dirt of Hawthorne's main street. Noah maintained a respectful distance, hat in hand despite the cool breeze. You've been in Hawthorne long? Willa asked. 2 years. Before that, all over the territory. A drifter, Noah gave a humorless laugh. Something like that. They passed the saloon, its piano music and raucous laughter spilling onto the street. Several men lounged outside, and their conversation died as Noah and Willa approached. Noah noticed how Willa tensed, her eyes fixed forward. Evening, Lambert, called one man, his voice slurred with whiskey. Found yourself some company, have you? Noah's hand moved instinctively toward his gun, but Willa's fingers caught his arm. Not worth it, she murmured. Noah forced his hand to relax, knowing she was right. His reputation meant most men avoided trouble with him, but alcohol and pride made for dangerous companions. They continued in silence until reaching Widow Abernathy's modest house on the eastern edge of town. Thank you for the escort, Mr. Lambert, Willa said, pausing at the gate. Noah, he corrected her. Mr. Lambert was my father, and he was a bastard. A smile flickered across her face. Then thank you, Noah. Perhaps I'll see you tomorrow evening? Perhaps, he agreed, though they both knew he'd be there. As autumn deepened, their evening encounters extended beyond the stable. Noah began waiting for Willa outside the general store where she'd taken work, walking her first to tend the horses, then to her aunt's home. Their conversations grew from sparse exchanges to genuine dialogue, though both carefully avoided certain topics, his past and her reasons for leaving Denver. One evening in late October, as an early snow dusted Hawthorne's buildings, Willa found Noah in his usual spot, a letter clutched in his hand. Bad news? She asked, noticing his troubled expression. Noah folded the paper and tucked it into his vest pocket. From an old friend. Trouble's brewing. What kind of trouble? He hesitated. The kind that follows a man no matter how far he runs. Willa moved closer than she ever had before, the scent of lavender enveloping him. I understand something about that, Noah. Their eyes met, and for a moment Noah thought she might share her own burdens. Instead, she turned to Sundance's stall. This town talks, she said carefully. About who you were, Noah tensed. And what do they say? That you rode with the Jasper gang, that you were a hired gun, that you... She trailed off. Killed people? Noah finished for her. Yes, I did. Willa stroked Sundance's mane, not looking at Noah. They also say you turned on your gang, testified against them when they massacred that family in Boulder, that you nearly died for it. Noah stood, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. People talk too much. Is it true? Her voice was soft but insistent. Does it matter? A man can't outrun his shadow, Willa. It matters to me. The simple statement hung in the air between them. Noah found himself wanting, for the first time in years, to defend himself, to explain how a 16-year-old orphan had fallen in with Jack Jasper's crew, mistaking their attention for the family he'd never had, how he'd hardened himself to survive until that awful day in Boulder when he'd found a mother and 3 children slaughtered for nothing more than a strongbox containing $50 and a gold watch. Instead, he said, I'm not that man anymore. I know, Willa replied. I see who you are now. Noah stepped closer, close enough to reach out and touch her if he dared. And who am I? A man trying to make amends, same as me. Before he could ask what she meant, the stable door burst open. Sheriff Thomas stood there, his face grim. Lambert, he said with a curt nod. Miss Keller, sorry to interrupt, but there's trouble. 3 riders just came into town asking about you, Lambert. Jasper men. Noah's blood ran cold. Jack's dead, hanged 2 years ago. His brother ain't, the sheriff replied. Emmett Jasper's leading them. Word is he's been hunting everyone who testified against his brother. Willa's face had gone pale. What does that mean? Noah's mind raced. It means I need to leave. Tonight. Running won't solve it, Sheriff Thomas said. They'll just follow. Might hurt innocent folks trying to get to you. Noah knew he was right. The Jaspers had never been particular about collateral damage. How long do I have? They're at the saloon now, asking questions. By morning, they'll know where to find you. Noah nodded. Thank you for the warning. The sheriff hesitated. Lambert, I know we've had our differences, but what you did, testifying it was the right thing. This town will stand behind you. After the sheriff left, Willa turned to Noah, her eyes fierce. You can't face them alone. I won't have innocent blood on my hands. Not again. Noah moved to Sundance's stall and began gathering his saddlebags. And what about your blood? Willa demanded. Does that mean nothing? Noah paused. Why would it matter to you? Because She stopped herself. Because no one deserves to die for doing the right thing. Noah approached her slowly. Willa, there's something coming for me that I can't outrun. But you don't have to be here when it arrives. I'm not afraid, she said, lifting her chin. You should be, he replied softly. I am. In the lantern light, he could see unshed tears in her eyes. Without thinking, Noah reached out, his rough fingers brushing her cheek. Willa didn't pull away. What are you going to do? She whispered. What I should have done 2 years ago. Finish this. Willa caught his hand in hers. Then I'm coming with you. It's not your fight. Perhaps I have my own reasons for wanting to see Emmett Jasper brought to justice. Noah studied her face, seeing determination beneath the fear. What aren't you telling me, Willa? She stepped back, releasing his hand. We all have our ghosts, Noah. Let's just say mine and yours might be acquainted. Before he could press further, she was gone, slipping into the night with a promise to meet him at dawn. Noah spent the night preparing, cleaning his revolver, and remembering skills he'd hoped never to use again. By first light, he'd made peace with whatever might come. When Willa appeared at the stable door, dressed in riding clothes with a small satchel over her shoulder, Noah knew arguing would be futile. My aunt believes I'm visiting friends in Denver, she explained. I left her enough money to manage until I return. And if you don't return? Noah asked bluntly. Willa met his gaze steadily. Then I'll have died trying to right a wrong, same as you. They rode out as the sun crested the mountains, taking the north trail toward the abandoned mining camp where Noah believed Emmett would establish his base. They traveled in companionable silence, each lost in thought about what lay ahead. By midday, they stopped beside a stream to rest the horses. As Willa knelt to fill their canteens, Noah finally asked the question that had burned in his mind all morning. How are you connected to the Jaspers? Willa's hands stilled. For a long moment she remained silent, watching the water flow over smooth stones. My husband, she finally said. He was a banker in Denver. The Jasper gang robbed his bank last year. He tried to stop them, foolish, brave man. Her voice caught. Emmett Jasper shot him in the chest while I watched, hidden under a desk. Then he took our life savings, everything we'd worked for. Noah felt as though he'd been struck. I'm sorry, Willa, I didn't know. How could you? She capped the canteen and stood. After the funeral, I discovered my husband had debts I never knew about. Without the money Emmett stole, I lost everything. That's why I came to Hawthorne to start over with my aunt's help. And now you're riding straight toward the man who destroyed your life, Noah said, understanding dawning. This isn't about helping me. It's about revenge. Justice, she corrected. The courts failed. Jack Jasper was hanged for the Boulder massacre, but Emmett walked free. No one could prove he pulled the trigger at the bank. Noah approached her slowly. Revenge hollows a person out, Willa. Believe me, I know. What would you have me do? Hide while you face them alone? She shook her head. I may not be handy with a gun, but I can be your eyes. I remember every detail of Emmett Jasper's face. Noah wanted to argue, to send her back to safety, but the determination in her eyes mirrored what he felt in his own heart. And something else, a connection he hadn't allowed himself to acknowledge, was growing between them, forged in shared pain and quiet moments in a dusty stable. We'll do this together, he conceded. But you'll stay back when the time comes. Promise me. She nodded, though Noah suspected she had no intention of keeping that promise. They reached the abandoned mining camp by nightfall. From their vantage point on a ridge overlooking the collection of dilapidated buildings, they could see 3 horses tethered outside the largest structure, light flickering through its broken windows. 3 men, Noah murmured, just like the sheriff said. Willa lay beside him on the rocky ground, peering into the darkness. What's the plan? Wait until they're sleeping. Take them by surprise. She touched his arm. And then? Noah met her eyes. I bring them back to Hawthorne to stand trial if they surrender. And if they don't? He didn't answer. They both knew the likely outcome. As the night deepened, a solitary figure emerged from the building, moving to check the horses. The man's silhouette was distinctive, tall and broad-shouldered, with the slight limp Noah remembered from years ago. That's him, Willa whispered, her fingers digging into Noah's sleeve. Emmett. Noah placed his hand over hers, feeling it tremble. You don't have to watch this. Yes, I do. Her voice was steady despite her shaking hand. For James, my husband. They waited another hour until the camp grew quiet. Noah checked his revolver one last time before turning to Willa. Stay here, he instructed. If something goes wrong, take Sundance and ride back to town. The sheriff will help you. Willa clutched his arm. Be careful. On impulse, Noah leaned forward and pressed his lips to her forehead, a gesture of comfort, of connection, of something neither dared name aloud. Always am, he whispered, then slipped into the darkness. Noah moved silently down the ridge, years of experience guiding his steps. He approached the main building from behind, easing through a broken window into what had once been an office. The sound of snoring came from the larger room beyond. Carefully, Noah peered around the doorframe. 2 men slept on bedrolls near a dying fire. The third, Emmett, was nowhere in sight. Noah felt a prickle of unease. Had he missed Emmett leaving the building? The answer came in the form of cold metal pressed against the back of his head. Hello, Lambert. Emmett's voice was just as Noah remembered, smooth as honey with poison beneath. Been a long time. Noah froze, mind racing. Emmett, still sneaking up on people, I see. Learned from the best. Jack always said you had eyes in the back of your head. The gun pressed harder. Guess he was wrong about that, too. How'd you know I was coming? Emmett chuckled. Wasn't hard. Sheriff in the last town mentioned you'd settled in Hawthorne. Playing the reformed man, are you? After you put a rope around my brother's neck? Jack put that rope there himself, Noah replied evenly. I just told the truth. Your truth. Emmett's voice hardened. Now move into the main room, slow. Noah had no choice but to obey. The 2 sleeping men stirred as Emmett kicked their boots. Boys, look what I found. Our old friend Noah. The men scrambled up, reaching for their guns. Noah recognized them both, Curtis Miller and Frank Doyle, 2 of the Jasper gang's newer recruits from before Noah had left. Well, well, Curtis sneered. The traitor himself. Tie him up, Emmett ordered. I want him awake when we send him to meet Jack. As Curtis bound Noah's wrists with coarse rope, Noah's thoughts turned to Willa. He prayed she'd had the sense to flee, to get back to Hawthorne in safety. But something told him she was still out there, watching, waiting, maybe even planning something foolish. Your brother got what he deserved, Emmett, Noah said, trying to keep their attention on him. Those people in Boulder, they were innocent. A mother and her children. Emmett backhanded him across the face, splitting Noah's lip. Shut your mouth. Jack had his reasons. $50 and a gold watch. Noah spat blood onto the dirt floor. That was his reason. It was never about the money. Emmett's face contorted with rage. It was about respect, about making people fear the Jasper name. Is that why you shot a banker in Denver? Noah asked, watching Emmett's expression carefully. For respect? Emmett's eyes narrowed. You've been asking questions. That's dangerous. So is leaving witnesses, Noah replied. The banker's wife saw everything, described you to a T. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Emmett's face. She's dead. Noah forced a cold smile. Are you sure about that? Before Emmett could respond, a bottle crashed through the window, shattering against the far wall. Flames erupted instantly. Coal oil, Noah realized. Willa had fashioned a makeshift firebomb. In the moment of confusion, Noah drove his shoulder into Curtis, knocking him off balance. Emmett fired wildly toward the window, but Noah was already rolling toward the door, despite his bound hands. Outside, shots rang out. Willa must have found the spare revolver Noah kept in his saddlebags. Her aim wasn't accurate, but it was enough to send Frank diving for cover as smoke began pouring from the building. Lambert! Emmett's enraged voice carried through the night. I'll find you, and whoever's helping you. Noah had just reached the cover of an overturned wagon when he felt hands on his bindings. Willa's face appeared beside him, pale in the moonlight. Hold still, she whispered, sawing at the ropes with a small knife. I told you to stay back, Noah hissed. And I ignored you, she replied calmly. The ropes fell away just as more shots peppered the wagon. We need to move, Noah said, taking the revolver she offered him. The fire will drive them out this way. Sure enough, coughing figures emerged from the smoke-filled building. Noah took careful aim and fired, hitting Curtis in the leg. The man went down with a howl of pain. Frank appeared next, gun raised, but before he could fire, Willa's shot caught him in the shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to drop him to his knees. Nice shooting, Noah said, genuinely impressed. My husband taught me, she replied grimly, though I was never very good at it. Emmett was last to emerge, using the chaos to slip around the side of the building. Noah spotted him just in time, pushing Willa down as bullets splintered the wood above their heads. Stay here, Noah ordered, and this time Willa nodded, her face set with determination as she trained her gun on the fallen Curtis and Frank. Noah moved quickly through the shadows, tracking Emmett's progress by sound. The man was injured, his breathing labored, his footsteps uneven. The fire had done its work. They came face to face in the moonlight between two collapsed mine shafts. Emmett's gun rose at the same moment as Noah's. You should have let it be, Emmett gasped, blood staining his shirt, whether from the fire or a wound. Noah couldn't tell. You came hunting me, Noah reminded him. You betrayed family, Emmett snarled. The Jaspers were never my family. Noah kept his aim steady. Put the gun down, Emmett. It's over. For a moment, it seemed Emmett might surrender. Then his eyes hardened. Not while I'm breathing. His finger tightened on the trigger, but Noah was faster. The shot echoed across the abandoned camp, and Emmett staggered backward, a look of surprise crossing his face before he collapsed. Noah approached cautiously, kicking Emmett's gun away. The man was still alive, but the bullet had found its mark in his chest, a mortal wound. She was there, Emmett wheezed, blood bubbling at his lips. The banker's wife. She saw. Yes, Noah confirmed. She saw everything. A bitter laugh turned into a cough. Tell her Jack made me do it. The banker wasn't my choice. Noah knelt beside the dying man. We both know that's a lie, Emmett. You always had a choice, same as me. Emmett's eyes fixed on something beyond Noah, growing dim. Guess we both chose wrong then. His last breath rattled out as Willa appeared, her revolver lowered but ready. Is he? She asked. Noah nodded, standing. It's done. Willa stared at Emmett's body, her expression unreadable. Noah wondered if she felt the closure she'd sought, if watching her husband's killer die had eased the weight she carried. Are you all right? He asked softly. She turned to him, tears streaming unchecked down her face. I don't know. I thought I would feel something. Relief. Satisfaction. She shook her head. I just feel empty. Noah understood completely. He holstered his gun and gently took the revolver from her trembling hands. The other two? He asked. Tied up. Neither wound is life-threatening, she reported, her practical nature reasserting itself even through her tears. Noah pulled her into his arms, and she came willingly, burying her face against his chest. They stood like that for a long moment, two broken people who had somehow found each other in the vast emptiness of the frontier. Let's go home, Noah finally said. Home, Willa repeated, as if testing the word. Is that what Hawthorne is now? Noah looked down at her, seeing not just the pain she'd endured, but the strength that had carried her through it. It could be, if you wanted. By dawn, they had loaded the wounded Curtis and Frank onto their horses, Emmett's body secured over his own mount. They rode slowly back toward Hawthorne, the rising sun painting the landscape in hues of gold and amber. What will you do now? Willa asked as the town came into view. Noah considered the question. For 2 years he'd existed in limbo, neither fully living nor ready to die. Now, with Emmett gone and the last of his past laid to rest, he faced a future he hadn't dared imagine. I thought maybe I'd build something, he said. A ranch, perhaps, somewhere with good grazing land for horses. Sounds like a lot of work for one person, Willa observed, a tentative smile touching her lips. Noah reached across the space between their horses, taking her hand. I was hoping I might have help. Her fingers tightened around his. I'd like that. Very much. They rode into Hawthorne side by side, delivering their prisoners to a stunned Sheriff Thomas before retiring to the stable where their story had begun. There, amid the familiar scents of hay and leather, Noah took Willa in his arms properly for the first time. "I never thought I'd find peace again," he confessed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Nor did I," she replied, rising on tiptoes to press her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with shared understanding and newfound hope. When they finally parted, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Willa Keller," he said, the words both foreign and completely natural on his tongue. "I think I have since you walked into this stable and fed my horse." She laughed, a sound as bright and unexpected as spring flowers after a harsh winter. "And I love you, Noah Lambert, despite your questionable choice of lodgings." Sundance nickered softly from his stall, as if approving this development. 3 months later, Noah and Willa Lambert stood on the porch of their newly built cabin, surveying the land that stretched before them. 20 acres of good Colorado soil, purchased with the reward money for bringing in the last of the Jasper gang. Behind the cabin stood a proper stable, home to Sundance and 3 mares Noah was training for resale. "Do you miss town life?" Noah asked, his arm around Willa's waist. She leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. "Not for a moment, though Aunt Martha threatens to visit once the weather improves." "She's always welcome," Noah said, meaning it. The old woman had surprised him by heartily approving of their marriage, despite his reputation. "Sheriff Thomas rode by yesterday while you were in town," Willa mentioned. "He said the circuit judge finally sentenced Curtis and Frank. 20 years hard labor." Noah nodded. Justice had been served, though it would never bring back the lives the Jasper gang had taken. "And how do you feel about that?" Willa was quiet for a moment, considering. "I think James would be at peace, as am I." She looked up at him, her eyes clear and bright. "The past doesn't haunt me anymore, not when the future looks so promising." Noah kissed her, still marveling at the miracle of second chances. They had both lost everything once, had carried burdens too heavy for any soul to bear alone. Now, together, they were building something neither had dared dream possible, a life filled with purpose, with hope, with love. As the sun set over their small piece of the frontier, painting the horizon in fiery hues, Noah Lambert finally understood what redemption truly meant. It wasn't just about atoning for past sins or finding justice for wrongs endured. It was about having the courage to begin again, to feed a horse, to build a home, to love completely despite the scars that remained. And as Willa's hand found his in the gathering dusk, Noah knew with absolute certainty that their story, which had begun so simply in a quiet stable, was only just beginning.